All right, guys, so heading into part 3 of this 4-part early prediction series that I want to do. And again, these aren't my final predictions, just kind of want to get my thoughts and predictions down on paper, do a little bit of discussion on what I think might be happening in the weeks leading up to actually hitting and going into those early caucus and primary states of Iowa, New Hampshire, Nevada, as well as South Carolina. I've already touched on Iowa and New Hampshire. If you want to check out those early predictions, I'll link them down in the video description. But specifically with Iowa and New Hampshire, I think there's actually an argument that can be made for any of the top 4 candidates to possibly go on and win those areas, where I think Nevada is a bit more straightforward, where Warren and Buttigieg, I don't think, have a great shot at finishing in that upper tier, whereas I think it's more so going to be competitive at the top between Bernie Sanders as well as Joe Biden. So starting off here in 4th place in Nevada, going to be putting Pete Buttigieg. And I think that Buttigieg is, at the end of the day, going to perform a little bit worse in Iowa and New Hampshire than where the polls currently have him. And I think that carries itself over into Nevada, where the demographics aren't as good for Buttigieg out in Nevada. And just in terms of how poorly he does with Latino voters, that's going to be a big net negative for him likely going into Nevada. And also, if he isn't overperforming in Iowa and New Hampshire out of the gate, then that means he's likely not to perform all that well in the next 2 states in Nevada as well as South Carolina. And in 3rd place, I think it is going to be Elizabeth Warren. Right now, in terms of where we're seeing the average of the polls in Nevada, Buttigieg is actually quite significantly behind the top 3 of Biden, Sanders, and Warren, but it's actually relatively competitive between Sanders and Warren in that 2nd place range, whereas Biden's a little bit above them. But given the very weak start that I possibly foresee for Joe Biden out of the gate in Iowa and New Hampshire, I think that can, at least when we head over towards Nevada, be a net negative for him to maybe drop him back and do a little bit weaker than where we're seeing him right now in the average of the polls. And like I said, I think it's a situation where you have Sanders and Biden competing at the top in Nevada. And specifically with Sanders, it's his strength among the Latino voters that's likely to be a big net positive for him in the state. And then on top of that, Nevada is a caucus, which tends to be more favorable to the types of voters that Sanders brings into the process, people that are more politically active and strongly committed to going to a caucus. And it's just a tougher situation at the end of the day for these people to participate in a caucus than what you're going to get in a primary. So those individuals that have very committed supporters like Bernie does, and we saw this in 2016 in his head-to-head matchup against Hillary Clinton, where Sanders often significantly outperformed what the polls were saying as we headed into those caucuses. But I think Warren, in this instance, does quite a bit better than Buttigieg in the state of Nevada, but still in 3rd place overall. And then given his relative weakness in the first couple of states, I think that likely hurts Biden going into Nevada. Now, Biden, based on what the polls are saying, he does typically the 2nd best among Latino voters, and then the white vote in Nevada, I expect it to be a bit more competitive among the top 4 candidates, but really their relative strength among the Latino voters is probably enough to get Biden and Sanders into a situation where they're competing for that top spot. And given his, or at least what I'm expecting to be the strengths of Bernie out of the gate in Iowa and New Hampshire, I think that also plays over into him having success in Nevada. The Latino voter strength, the fact that it's a caucus, and the fact that I think he'd be coming off back-to-back victories in Iowa and New Hampshire, I think that's enough for Bernie Sanders to get over the line and in a competitive 1st place, just able to eke it out past Joe Biden. So like I said, I think Nevada is a little bit more straightforward, and as a result, not doing quite as much discussion, at least in terms of the time that this video is compared to the first 2 states that I talked about, not Iowa and New Hampshire. And again, if you want to check out those early prediction videos that I made, I'll link them down in the video description. And not my final prediction by any means. I still want to see how the polling data continues to come out over the coming weeks. Also, we have some more debates to work our way through, and just to see how the narrative around these campaigns and the media coverage and how that might affect where these candidates are as we get closer and closer. But at the end of the day, I think that Sanders can have a lot of strength in these early states. Now, I think that South Carolina is a little bit different of a story, and that's going to be my next video to kind of wrap up this 4-part series. So if you guys want to work my way through this and be a part of this entire process in terms of going through my predictions, going over the results, and then seeing how these predictions either went right or wrong after the fact, I'd really appreciate it if you click that subscribe button, and I hope to see you guys back here for future videos.